welcome to this first look exploring session, looking at some fragments. We're looking at lots of fragmentary plays. This is our third, I think, on the YouTube. Looking at fragmentary texts. We've done at least one of these before on the podcast, but the rest is all new. It's all new to us. I know nothing about many of these things that are coming up later on. And the nature of fragments is they're very short, and some of them are just stupidly short. I'm not even sure while we're even bothering to open the file. But some of them are quite long. And the first one we're going to be looking at in a moment definitely does give us a decent amount of setup for us to say, well, how are we going to create something around this? What can we create and do with this? Maybe we can find a home for this text somewhere else. Or just improvise a whole new show based on a few lines of early modern dialogue. To dance around such fun ideals, reading variously Justice Sergeant Holefer, Oswald, Toogood, Malfrida, etc. is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm all these people.
Reading Injury, Panthea, Prologue, Ethelbert, Gerard, etc. is...
Liza Graham, I contain multitudes.
Reading Division, Yeoman, Argument, Duchess, Ingram, etc. is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton, reading Albion and lots of other people. I am Legion, for we are many. So we will start with a text we have looked at before, I say, on the podcast. A moral play, both pithy and pleasant, of Albion Knight. And yes, this has a weird range of dating possibilities. It could be from the 1530s. It could be from the very late 1550s, early 1560s, and depending on your point of view, it could be an Elizabethan play or it could be earlier. The play staggers into state. We've lost the bit at the beginning of the play, and then we go straight into the action. But broadly speaking, this is relatively early in the play, as far as we can tell. There's a lot of setup you're going to get. So without further ado, we're going to just dive into this fragment, let it play out, see where we go, and see how that all runs along. So the manuscript, the play starts here. Some other stuff happened.
Nay, I will taste of other essays, and spare our Dame for holy days, so that for very need she must use her feet with other of her house, and such as she can get. Yet is she not much to blame, though she increased her husband's name, such children to bring as now you see me, tall man as I am, unworthy though I be.
Thou speakest like a laurel full large and full lewdly, and not like a child gotten of true matrimony. And yet, though thy person induce no likelihood that in thee should be any manhood, yet beside that thou seemest of manhood frail, because so abused is thy light apparel.
Apparel? Good sir, what fault is that? Though grey be her coat, why blame ye the wild cat? Why should ye him deem of nature frail, though as wise as ye would wear a fox tail, or a coat after the common usage, or have by nature a mad visage? There be no witness for justice to discern, nor certain knowledge of nature to learn. And Christ taught ye, sir, how ye should judge men, saying, Nolite judicare secundum faciem. And yet in nature better knowledge should be than is in apparel, ye know, perdie.
Oh, yet in apparel is great abusion, if it be framed without discretion. For in apparel there may great token be of frailness, of pride, and instability. If commonacies therein use no measure. For then is apparel a wanton foolish pleasure, and folly best meed is of presumption, when nature of reason used resumption. And therefore Christ taught a great wise prose, saying, Ex fructibus eorum cognoscetis eos.
Yea, with that same text I pray you wipe your nose. He said not ex vestibus eorum cognoscetis eos.
Yet, friends, I pray you once again to cease your traverse that breeds disdain, and heartily both do you pray that both your friendships have I may.
Sir, as for mine, I think you shall not miss. But this gentleman, I think, will go piss.
Nay, Sir Albion, I will not draw back if that of me ye have lacked, so that I were in perfect surety that this man here should manhood be.
Now Christ's benedictee, how Albion and Justice hath forgot me, because of me they had no exercise of long time by any enterprise. Wherefore, sithen ye cannot know me by experience, I wot not how you should know me but by my credence. Therefore, by my truth, and by my honesty, believe me, for manhood I truly am he.
Then, by your oath, I am content to have your friendship with good assent, and Justice, I pray you do the same.
Sir, if manhood be his name as he hath sworn, I would be glad that his friendship also I had.
Then, Justice, I pray you both, let me knit you both upon this oath. Now, friends, I trust we be all three, and with this knot, I pray you contented be.
Sir, ye ought to be contented best of all where justice is treated with due equity, and where no favour nor meed should be, and when reason hath tried there every deal, that such an act were good for the common weal. If therein any loss may be to the disadvantage of principality, such an act loseth all his suit with a little inducing of reason astute. And if it touch the Lord's spiritual, or be disadvantage to the Lord's temporal, farewell, go bet, this bill may sleep as well as through the Parliament creep. And if the merchants be moved withal, or any multitude of the common hall, that is not for us, say they then, this bill is naught but for to wipe a pan. This is all your new equity, and for all your message, yet thus will it be.
Alas, if this may not reformed be, I shall never be sure of prosperity.
Yea, and what followeth hereof, Master Albion, to your person universal derision.
Why to me derision?
For all other strange nations they will rail on ye with open proclamations, saying, whosoever do as he does is half a man and half a wild goose.
Why half a man and half a wild goose?
For with high reason they say you can dispute and try out perils with laborious suit, and eke the treasure for the common vale as far as wit or reason can assail. But when all is done and your statute made, then forth ye go in a wise trade to bring it all to good conclusion, and put it never in execution. Then speak they further, instead of a mock, they have made a statute like a woodcock, that hath but one eye and the other blind, and it will turn with every wind. For because ye study but for the beginning, and never provide for a sure ending, beginning like a man ye take great essay, at last like a wild goose even but to fly away.
Well, if this be true, it is more pity. Yet let us endeavour, both ye and I, to taste our message that it were done to help hear of some reformation.
Yea, that to do I pray you both, and to you too I promise by oath I shall me endeavour with the commonalty their whole allegiance to keep in unity.
Then God be your speed, for I will forth my way.
And I will after. God guide us that best may.
And I will tarry no longer while, but as I see you over the stile.
And we're just going to pause there. So, this is very familiar to anyone who's been looking at sort of morality play type things. We've got injury in disguise as manhood. We've got justice being going, hang on, you're not... So, yeah, get your Tudor bingo cards out here. It's someone in disguise with a different name. Yes, we've got Albion here. I'm going to suggest that maybe Albion standing in allegorically for something. I can't think what. Maybe the kingdom. So we've got justice, and we've got this interloper injury. What injury will injury create here? It's bouncing along in quite a fun way. It's interesting we've got these dating options. I felt it was more a 1530s thing than a later thing, but I don't know if there's any meaningful way of actually assessing that. Thoughts on the room? Liza?
Well, I don't know much about context here, but it really seems like this is a political play. Like they're talking about the procedure of passing a bill through Parliament, which if you're my generation, you watched a cartoon called America Rock with a singing bill that wanted to get through Congress. And yes, so they're talking about how they write really good laws, but they can either never pass them or never put them into practice, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's going to be more of this to come. I'm willing to spoil it, everyone, to say that yes, absolutely, that's what's going on. This is very political.
So if we could pin it to a certain act that it was about, that would give us our date.
I don't think anyone's managed to do that with the amount of fragment that we've got, because I would have thought someone would have tried, but nobody's absolute on that. But yeah, just the anyone mentioning the word Reformation always just makes one the ears start wagging. Other thoughts in the room? I'd say just on theatrically on it all. It bounces along quite nicely. I mean, it's not subtle, but it has a nice little swing to it. I do like injuries, scatological stuff as well. Inevitably, I like what you can use a bill for. Rachael.
I mean, that injury also plays manhood. I mean, maybe is there room for toxic masculinity in this, and personal pride versus, the rightness or justice, that higher mindedness that one should have towards your country or your countrymen and serving that. Personal pride versus, I don't know, something noble for your country, good for the country.
Yeah, it's a generational thing going on here, I think. We're going to get a bit more data on this in a moment, but anyway, Liza.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of like the people who broke into the Capitol on January 6th, but they told themselves and everyone who would listen that they were defending the Constitution or whatever, and no, they were just being dicks.
And which I think is a good segue into where the play is going next. So we paused as Injury was left alone on stage. Won't be alone for long, but it's going to give us a little more background as to who they are and their purpose in life. So, departeth Albion and Justice both, we've got Injury left alone.
Now, here beginneth a game I wis, for manhood they ween my name is. But trust me, sirs, if I should not lie, my name is called Injury, which name to hide I thought it policy, and turn it to manhood, and wot you why? It is a part of our new experience, when I against right make stiff defense that justice in his seat may not be enstabled, then am I, Injury, manhood called. Oh, then of me croaketh every man, how like a lord this fellow stare can the law to defend without a fall, for all their pleading in Westminster Hall, or say what they will and babble there, yet maintenance and I will keep the chair. If it come once to the country, then as I will, so shall it be. A very cause, sirs, why I hide my name was they should not suspect my fame, because I would spy all their intent to change their purpose after my judgment. So will I do, For this is their pretence by means of justice to bring in experience, that peace should continue the people among, and so by that means to banish me wrong. But trust me, sirs, I will none of that, but rather by their faces I will them scrat. And me to maintain in this opinion, I have an old mate called Division, that shall be of my counsel in this case, which I trust will not turn his face, till peace be driven clean from Albion. And then let justice and me alone, for I trust ere he and I have done, he shall go whistle in a marrow bone. As for any rightful judgment that after this should follow his intent, and now, sirs, I will go my way my fellow to seek, find him if I may.
And here injury goeth out, and then division cometh in with a bill, a sword, a buckler, and a dagger. So basically, division is well tooled up.
Have a rusk, out of the busk, a lusty captain, a boar with a tusk, a sturdy lusk, any battle to darraign, a stallion stout to bear it out, in everywhere, and never to lout, for a knave's clout, though my head it bear, as stiff as a stake, battle to make, as never afeared, I can awake these knaves and take them fast by the beard. For peace is bent, nor full intent to live at ease, shall not prevent, let of my judgment to alter in disease. Such cast I have to conjure a knave out of his skin. Though justice rave to hang or save, fie on him, horse son.
And injury cometh in again.
Marry, fie on him, horse son. What, art thou mad again?
What, mine old friend Injury?
Ah.
How were other hanged, and thou let go by?
By God, because I took delay for lack of thee to be my attorney.
What, poor son, wouldst thou have me be trussed up instead of thee?
Yea, by God, but even for a say that I might learn of you to know the play.
To play, poor son, what meanest thou by that?
By God, methought even now you were in a snare, or else an hunting to catch a hare. But hark, I say, do together and spell, beware ever among of the friary clerk's bell.
It is doubtful to me all that thou speakst. I pray thee spell it thyself, and tell me what thou meanest.
But wouldst thou needs so fain know it? I tell thee, with Albion and justice I am knit, and therefore it were wisdom for thee to beware what thou sayest before me.
What, poor son, then thou hast forsaken me?
Nay, I had liefer ye were skinned all three, for I have turned the wrong side of my hood, and told them my name was Manhood. And now, by God, in any wise for both our eases, I must have thine advice.
What, hast thou now changed thine old copy to justice in Albion to be a common hobby? Or art thou afeared of thy old name, that in every place is had in fame, and is supported in such suffrancy, from the lowest unto the highest degree?
Nay, by God, I was not afeared. It was but for to claw their beard, or rub it of all that they meant, that I might know all their intent, whereof the matter is too long to tell for the time that we did mell, but shortly to show thee for a conclusion, their mind is to bring us both to confusion.
I pray thee, by what means?
Albion hath sent justice to principality to have assistance, and me to suffrancy of the lords temporal to have their aid, that justice should in no wise be delayed. And this thou knowest well enough, perdie, thus they mean to destroy thee and me. And as for justice, forth is gone, speed as he can, but I tarried alone. And yet I would no messenger be till I had the advice of thee. Therefore, how sayest thou now in this case? We shall not be idle to play at this base.
Hush. As for this, I care not putting prick, for we two will go through thick and thin, thin and thick. may grease their heads every one, though they be as hard as rock or stone.
I pray thee, tell me how.
But before you can tell us how, I think we should unpack some of the stuff's going on here. Yes, manhood is the disguise of this person, and yes, their wicked ways will be ruined if justice rules over the land and gets a position. And there's all sorts of little other characters that we're getting named here. We're getting peace, we're getting experience, we're getting we have principality, we've got all this this ship of state being laid out here. It's quite complicated, but also quite straightforward. I'm interested in just the nature of injury here. Everyone already knows him. He's just turned turncoat and is in disguise. Thoughts on the room, Liza, then Rachael.
I saw Rachel's hand before I raised mine.
Then I'll go to Rachael. Rachael has given you the floor.
Okay, well, I wondered if maybe the piece of legislation, if there is a piece of legislation associated with this play, it's to do with making trials go faster, or maybe sessions being held more frequently, or judges appointed more easily. So there's a legal bit and there's a legislative bit, and there seem to be jokes about both. It'd be interesting to find out as we go.
Yes, we've got Lord's the temporal. I'm sure the Lord Spiritual will come up at some point as well. You can't avoid them. Rachael.
No, a question about monarchs' reigns. When does King Henry's reign start? When does he begin his divorce from Catherine of Aragon, and when does Elizabeth? When does hers come to, or Mary, because Mary comes first? But
well, within the two dating periods that this could has been ascribed potentially to, it's post 37, 38. So who's dead by then in Henry VIII's reign? Cromwell's still alive. I'm not sure precisely where we are in terms of marriages. Around about all this, yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where we are precisely. At the later dating range, 59 to 65, that's the early years of Elizabeth, pretty much bang on. So, the logic there, if it's Elizabethan, might be that you've got a new monarch coming in. Let's make sure the laws are good. Maybe there's an opportunity for reform to get rid of all the injustice in the world, and maybe there's a religious dimension to that. As to Henry's politics, I don't know. I don't know if other people in the room have Googled that while I was talking to come up with a quick and swift answer as to precisely what was going on in 1537, 38-ish. Other thoughts in the room while we're doing that? Just about the other thing is just talking about the play as a starting point for a play today. Today. We've already mentioned American politics. There are various elements of British politics that land very nicely. I say nicely in a quite depressing way for me about this. Just simply the name division in any political context is nice. I like, and is division singing or what when they're coming on this sort of verse that they're doing at the beginning.
Division meant, among the meanings of division was polyphony and harmony, like music that was divided into more than one voice. So that's fun.
Back to Rachael.
I just wanted to throw out that, because we've done other morality things, and this is just a realization that I'm having right now with this one. But the elements of those 7 deadly sins, and changing the names of them, even though these personifications of, ne'er-do-wells have different names, they have some elements of the different, I think, sins, and to give them these things that are tangible, real actions that people can take, as opposed to these more, I don't know, abstract beings. If that makes sense, like than we had in older ones like Castle of Perseverance or something like that.
Yeah, it's that interesting taking that morality form of these abstract things which are working in a different context, and something that is much more overtly political. We get this a bit in Magnificence, a morality play from much earlier, where there's sort of a quite overt king figure in the middle of it. And other things as well off the top of my head, which is slightly blurry. Probably a bit in King John as well, the Bale King John. So yeah, it's still playing within that form, but doing slightly different things. It's a really quite engaging one. There isn't much left, and we're mostly getting set up now. Are you ready for some cunning plan? Is that everyone? Many cunning plans. You might get a bit lost in the cunning plans, but don't worry. Injury. Could you ask again, Division, to come up with some cunning plans?
Just as soon as I unmute myself. I pray thee, tell me how.
First, I myself will enterprise that peace shall have no exercise between the commons and principality, nor between lords spiritual and lords of the temporality.
Ere you go any further, tell me by what means.
I have 2 spies of great exercise. The one is called Double Devise. Him will I send, I may tell thee, unto the court to principality, and him will I charge that with his provision, principality in the commons to set at division. The second spy is called Old Debate, a singular fellow with a bald pate. Him will I send to the lords spiritual, to cause them to wrangle with the lords temporal.
What shall they use in their device?
The one to principality shall surmise that the commons' hearts do arise against him, when that he doth ask, in time of need, our money for task, his heart to move with such unkindness. Then the same spy shall use like doubleness, and go to the commons, and to them tell that principality with equity doth rebel more to his lucre in every deal, applying his affection then to the commonweal, and how that he of negligence doth not apply for their defense, neither by sea nor by land, neither by high waves, neither by strand, but thieves and raveners and murderers eke daily true men they pursue and seek, and that his laws indifferently be not used, but maintenance and bribery is suffered alone, without reformation, that the poor commons is an altercation of this matter, and wot not what to say, bringing them an opinion that they ought not to pay to principality their duty of very desert, except like duty be ministered on his part.
I make God avow this is a sovereign bait to bring our purpose to a narrow strait. But what shall the other spy then do? A fellowship, tell me that also.
Marry, he shall inform the lords temporal that the spiritual men would rule all, and say it were a shame to them by the rood, that being descended from the noble blood, to suffer any other of such power to be, to have the governance about principality, sithen they inheritors are born to be of the high council, by blood and dignity, with medicine, I trow, will not likely start, till it hath tickled them all by the heart. Then shall the same spy taste the other part, and turn to them the wrong side of the cart, and say, that God of his high great grace to them hath given good fortune and space by learning sadness and gravity, and for their due reward and honor to be, and bear to them boldly in hand, that they ought, by reason, to rule this land, because the power of temporality hath no knowledge and cunning. Purdy, neither in youth will labor the passage of pain for virtue to rule in age, so that, if they rulers would be, they know not how for insufficiency. Thus will I divide, by this proper train, that peace amongst them shall not reign.
Marry, this is a cast of a new horse comb to rub any on the navel that hath a tickle womb. This gear will work, after my fantasy, to make of an old grudge a new frenzy. This openeth the gate even for me, that both the one and the other degree shall wrestle with themselves in such afflictions, that everyone shall disdain all other jurisdictions.
What wilt thou do then? Let me hear thy cast.
This gentle seed will I sow at the last, when peace by thee is in perplexity, and wot not in what part quiet to be. Then justice must ever be in doubt, which part at need shall bear him out, so that, for my part, he shall stand still, while I run at large and have all my will.
But to what conclusion wilt thou bring it then?
Why know'st not thou? Then hark me, man. This Justice is a fellow of a far cast, and driveth such drifts to rule at the last, and Peace is his brother of one degree, which hath a fair daughter that is called Plenty. And Albion, as long as rest him treats, he loveth fair flesh of all meats. And it is a common saying that Justice, Peace, and he will conclude a marriage with fair Dame Plenty. And then will Albion, that old sot, with rest and peace, so on her dote, that then she, by her and her friends, shall sail in storms at all winds.
By God's bread, thou sayest truth. But this to help we must not use sloth.
No, and therefore hark me to an end. Thou and I shall this matter defend. For thou shalt to Albion a messenger be, and say thou wert present when principality with justice fell at great debate, which when that his message he did dilate from Albion. And tell him that principality in no wise his will with equity will grant to exercise, but that the law should be but after his liking, and every writ after his entitling, and that his will whoever list to strive should be the best part for his prerogative. And then they both suddenly upon this in great rages departed, I wis. Wherefore, Justice said, I am in such confusion that I am ashamed to turn again to Albion. And when this message thou hast done soberly, tell him thy name is Policy.
What the devil meanest thou by that? Should I dissemble from a wild cat, that ever before this have used hatching, and now to play the wise man and leave scratching?
Why, whoreson, is it a point of high madness for a time to dissemble sadness? And though thou be already as mad as a hart, yet will I make thee madder than thou art.
Well, say on.
Marry, then even thus I say, when thou to Albion thou hast taken thy way and done thy message as I thee bade, he will for a while be pensive and sad. He will ask thine advice, then must thou dissemble thyself wise.
I make God avow, that is impossible that I and wisdom should knit in one queenable, or in my brain to print such abusion, that wisdom and I should be in one conclusion. For when I was young, my mother charged me, and said, beware, wit son, though thou never thee.
And I am not disposed to change much your life, but hear me speak an end, though you never thrive.
Well, say on then, and tell me what counsel I shall give Albion that may sound well to both our prophets that would I.
Thou shalt teach him a wrong cross row, and tell him best it is, after thine advice, with mirth and prodigality him to exercise, and take of his own good while he may, lest all at last be bribed away.
And that's all we've got. We've got the setup. It's divide and conquer. Division is there to tell the various different sides, the spirituality to distrust the temporality, and the temporality to distrust, and vice versa. You've got to be careful though. They're going to go against you, and in all that chaos, Injury gets to go out and have fun and do whatever he likes because everyone else is confused, and this has never happened in modern politics in any context whatsoever. We couldn't apply this to any situation of modern day. It's absolutely impossible. We've got our usual Tudor bingo of someone's given a new name again. So Injury now is Policy. It's going to be presiding to be Policy, and we've got the setup. We've got all these characters who've been described. Right, off you go and write the rest of the play. Thoughts on the room? Rachael.
I was going to say, even though this is a morality play and there's so much missing from it, this division something, they definitely, I mean, both the date ranges that you gave, if it's early Elizabeth or if it's, in Henry's time, that, I don't know, I feel like they, it's definitely not thinly veiled. It's got to be talking about, the change in the country and, the church and not the church and the state dividing, but, dividing from whatever the other thing, or if they're trying to cover it up or something. And also that second to last thing that division says with I make God a vow, did that make sense to anybody else? Because it seemed sort of garbled to me when I was reading it. Like, I don't really know what he's saying there.
There is one word of which I have absolutely no idea what it is. It's that thing. The Injury is telling you that you have to pretend to be wise, and you're going, "Oh no, I've never been able to do. That's not my job. I don't do wisdom. My mother said I should never be wise."
Beware wit, son. I guess wit is the same as wisdom. And text of this period, the thee at the end actually means thrive. Some people say like, so thee I, or so may I thee, and that means thrive, even though it's the same spelling as thee for you, but it's thee with an unvoiced th. Just one of those weird ass things.
So it's got lots of it's got a lot going for it. I mean, a lot of it is set up. Which is quite nice because then we can execute the rest of the play and do whatever we like with it. I feel that this is one for an improv session or two, using other plays as a basic outline to know the kind of games that might be going on here. Any other thoughts on Albion Knight? I say politically, it feels very omnipresent, as it were. Historically, it could have a context that you could play with. I mean, you could, the way Division's talking about going tell the Lord's temporal that there's you're descended from royal blood. You don't want anyone else coming in from somewhere else lower people coming in, taking your position. You could apply that very easily to Henry's court, but you could also apply that to Elizabeth in a different way as well. Liza.
Yeah, it just seems like it seems as though maybe what the play, I mean, it's impossible to know really what the playwright is complaining about, but they seem to be having the vices tell each branch of government that they should be the ones to lead and they should be the ones to function independently, so that nothing ever gets done.
Yes.
No justice, no law, so that then injury and division can, having screwed everything up, can then run rampant through the land.
Yeah, I'm so they're not like any modern day political figures at all. Like you can't make that comparison in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, that's its general thrust, isn't it? That you need justice, you need someone looking over it, you need unity within the kingdom for Albion to go forward. And there's this whole stuff about a unity with Dame Plenty, with Albion, with rest and peace, and that's. I get the impression that's sort of the idea of where we're heading towards for a closing context. Any more? Otherwise, we'll go on to our next, much shorter fragment. Rachael.
Yeah, I would love to see this one actually come out, and be staged, because it's so short and it's so, if there was, I don't know what else you would put with it for a thing, but as a protest piece or something like that, as protest theater or something, I think it would be great, and like you said, it's very timely.
I would say it bounces along really nicely. I do like the sort of tenor of it all. Actually, I think it has a nice. I mean, it might get repetitious, but then it can't, because there isn't any more. Anyway, we're going to jump forward. So we have a little fragment from a version of the tragedy of Panthea. We've encountered the character of Panthea before. This play could date anywhere from 1567 to 1580. Approximate date is generally we've got down here is 1572, none of which desperately helps you. It's to do with the potential boy company that would have been doing it, though they probably wouldn't be doing it. The performances would probably be mostly for the court consumption. This is a song, and that's all we have of it. So Liza, I think you're down for Panthea. Let's see what the text gives us.
Ah, alas, you salt sea gods, bow down your ears divine. Lend ladies here warm water springs to moist their crystal eyne, that they may weep and wail, and wring their hands with me, for death of lord and husband mine. Alas, alas, lo, this is he. You gods that guide the ghosts and souls of them that fled, send sobs, send sighs, send grievous groans, and strike poor Panthea dead. Abradad, Abradad, ah, alas, poor Abradad, my sprit with thine shall lie. Come, death, alas, O death most sweet, for now I crave to die, to die, to die.
And there is an indeterminate number of to-dies, as well as various inferred sort of repetitions of ahs that have come out there. Panthea's not very happy. I think we've got sort of options where we can use it. We have got plays from approximately the same period that do feature Panthea, so it might be a matter that we could recycle this within a different play. How did that strike you? That worked reasonably well. Any thoughts? It's always difficult with this to say about these fragments, what to do with it. But any thoughts from the room about... Give me something, people. Don't make this a monologue. Eric.
Well, it's very appropriate to like what she kind of feels for her husband, and kind of, she wants to die with him. And there's a part of me going, is this like sort of tracing back to the practice of something I can't pronounce, which someone else will probably know. Just because, no, it's not a duck thing. It's just like sort of, right? I can't remember the word for it. Sort of when they would burn the woman with the dead person on fire. I know it starts with S. That's about it. Anyway, yeah. So this could easily fit at the end of a play, or like, sort of, yeah.
Maybe we want to commission our own Panthea, because we've not always been wholly on side with some of the versions we've had. So maybe that's a starting point for someone. I'm not going to linger too long on this. I'm not going to linger very long on the next ones, as we're going to do what I'm going to call the complete works, dramatic works of George Puttenham. So we have two tiny little extracts that have survived. Three little extracts that have survived. First is from allegedly Lusty London by George Puttenham, which has this little exchange between a sergeant and a yeoman. So, Sergeant Eric and Yeoman Rachael, take it away.
I what I mean, John. It is for to stay and accompany the knave carrier for losing my way.
I mean what I want, sir. Your best is to hie and carry a knave with you for company.
And there's another little fragment which I'll ask Eric to read from presumably later in the text.
Many a fair lass in London town, many a bawdy basket borne up and down, many a broker in threadbare gown, many a bankrupt scarce with a crown in London.
And that was Lusty London there. Next we have The Wooer, also by George Puttenham, again from the 1570s to 1580s in some way. We have a wooer who's wooing today. Have I got someone down to do the wooing? Did I bother giving anyone to be a wooer? No one's down to be a wooer? No, I did not. Liza, be the wooer, and Rachael be the nurse.
I pray you, good mother, tell our young dame whence I am come and what is my name. I cannot come a wooing every day.
They be lubbers, not lovers. That's so used to say.
And there's some additional dialogue again with no idea who the speaker is. Eric.
I wonder much to see so many husbands thrive that have but little wit before they come to wife. For one would easily ween, who hath so little wit, his wife to teach it him were a thing much unfit.
And that is the complete works of George Puttenham there. It's again, these are little scraps that turn up in other places. Got no context. I'm quite liking bits of that. I cannot come a wooing every day. They be lubbers, not lovers. Eric.
Yeah, I like the implication that the wooer has better things to do, or like sort of, I've got businesswoman, let me in. I got shit to do.
Mm.
Yeah, there was a popular song, which was a courting song, and from, if I remember correctly, the person singing the song is boasting of all the things that would make them a great husband, but actually they're terrible things. And they conclude every stanza with the phrase, "I cannot come every day to woo." So it may have been sort of a commonplace thing of quick, give me an answer. Tomorrow's looking kind of full,
And the fact that these sort of pop out at one is probably just that these are quotable lines from within the text, and that's why they've survived. I mean, that's the logic of why these sort of little things come at us. Is these are the zingers. These are the rest of the play could have been rubbish. This is gold. This is Eric.
I kind of want, I cannot come a wooing every day on a T-shirt or like a mug, and then you just give it to your significant other, if you have one, or two, or three.
Well, we could do the complete works of George Puttenham mug series, couldn't we? Because you could actually fit all of this. You could fit the wooer on a mug, because there's only 8 lines. Okay, right, that's one to put on Redbubble. Okay, Rachael.
This is what I'm going to say is probably terrible, but if you put his collected works on a mug, could you put it on one of those thermal ones so it disappears like when it's cold? But in seriousness, these do really pop out, and what you said about that these are probably the quotable lines and stuff. It's like the Isle of Dogs, that it sounds so good, just from the little bit that's left, that it's tantalizing enough, even if the rest of the play in reality was rubbish. It still makes me want to read it just from these little bits, because there's this little humor, these little witticisms that jump out. So bravo, George. Glad I read your completed works.
I could be wrong. There might be some complete plays that actually we haven't that are coming further down the line, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Anyway, we are now going to go to another opening of the play. Judith. We don't. There's a bit of a date range on that. It's anywhere from 1595 over the next 30 years, depending on who you ask. But generally, people have been going for 1595. We have a prologue, we have an argument, and we have the beginning of the first speech of the play. All seems to be in prose. So, yeah, I'm going to ask Liza. Yes, you're down to prologue, as it were. Some textual issues, but hopefully it will read reasonably well.
O ye most worshipful and gentle citizens, all hail unto you, whosoever of you came hither to see these pleasant and delightful comedies. I will not stay you with any long speech, but whatsoever we are about to do, we will declare unto you, be a comedy being in presence with few words. But who is he which made this comedy? It is one Sconius, a master of our school. For he purposed to show this his industry unto you aforetime. Now he declareth another comedy. It is not vain, but also holy and godly, taken out of the Holy Bible. And what vacant soever he had, the scholars being absent, he willingly applied all that time unto this study. And he thinketh his labour not to be unprofitable to himself, not unto you unacceptable, if you would dedicate your minds either unto divine learning or unto politic arts. For even as he confesseth his comedy to be far differing from the style and phrase of ancient poets, so if there be any loss or breaking herein, let every man judge of it as they will. For here is nothing which is either absurd or dishonest, or anything unworthy to be heard, but only chaste, honest, and godly, which you are about to hear, whereby you shall try all things, whether they be true or not. And so there be no learned men wanting which will read and allow his comedies, unto whose comedy ye seem to obey, whom I see most attentive and heedful, and giving great ear hereunto. Giving great ear hereunto?
Yeah.
Now, lest that any man by your judgment shall think me to have been long about it, if I hold you here any long time, give ear unto me while I show you the argument of this comedy.
Briefly pause there. Because the argument will pass the baton over to Rachael in a moment. So yeah, even though it probably is the same speaker, isn't it? Yes, by the way it's structured. But yes, this is going to be a play that's only chaste, honest, and godly. So That's what we want from our pleasant and joyful comedies. So let's see. Rachael, give us the argument, please.
Holofernes, the captain of the Assyrians, mighty in war and doing many noble acts, compassed the city Betulia with great siege. The citizens being separated on from another by their strength, desired aid of God. Then they, being vexed with scarceness of water, said they would yield to their enemies unless in 5 days God would help them. As soon as this came unto Juditha, her ear, she consulted with Ozia, her lieutenant. Hereupon, she being breathed by heavenly powers by night, and took her handmaid with her, and went to the tents of her enemies. And she most craftily deceived Holofernes by her feigned deceits, whom after he, being overwhelmed by overmuch drinking of wine immoderately, when she had cut off his head and brought it to the city, by and by the enemies fled away, being frightened with great fear. Then the Israelites, having gotten the victory, gave great praise unto God.
In which case we now go into the first act and scene with Holefer. Take it away.
By Jupiter, it is granted unto me, for whatsoever I do, it happened unto me most prosperously. For into what part soever of the world I go with my army, I presently rise great fear and trembling. Neither is there any city anywhere or region valiant in army which can resist against me. For all men, as soon as they hear me to have come unto me somewhat near unto them, by and by they come unto me, and will yield unto me both themselves, their region's goods, and arms upon which they put their trust, and daily resisting against them, and will ever do it. They give and yield themselves unto me willingly, and all respects obeying my precepts and commandments. By obtaining the which things, truly, so happily and valiantly, I think I shall obtain great praise and gorgeous reward, as I have hitherunto gotten wonderful great renown and glory for myself and my posterities. Sith that this is the only way for noble and prince-like men, whereby they may never drown, nor lose their eternal honor and glory, when the fame of slothful men and cowards dishonestly decayeth with the life which dishonestly I know I have avoided hither unto the hope I...
Yes, and there he stops. Holefer's coming across interesting. It's like I just can't help winning, and everyone's so willing to become a vassal to me. It's great. There's someone with an ego the size of a planet. It's a very difficult one to read because it's very difficult to figure out where the sentences begin and end and how it flows. But well done everyone for sort of navigating that. So yeah, it's a school play, and it's going to be all the things, and we got a bit of an interesting start. It had a nice little flow to it, despite its the difficulty figuring out where to pause. Thoughts on the room, Eric?
There were a lot of unto me's in there, and I was like, I mean, you don't need them.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of redundancy actually in the whole text. It was very verbose. The precepts. Rachael.
Maybe this is the whole play. Maybe at the end of this speech, Judith just comes and slits his throat, and that's the end of it. And that's the comedy bit, is that it's just an extremely short play.
Well, so he's come on drunk, and she just comes on and just cuts his head off. I like that. I actually think that's a way to stage this. Is we go through all the introductory stuff, we do the thing, ta-da, thump. Okay, yeah, that's the pitch. I like that. Eric.
I was just wondering about, because there's notes there about the I don't know if that's the way it's meant to be read, like iambi scenariet septenari. It just seems like, well, I'm guessing that's like the style it was written in, or something like iambic, something. My Latin is not that good. Yeah, it's just interesting to see that it looks like prose, but I don't know if that's just the sort of formatting.
Yeah, well, the way it's written out on the page didn't seem to make any sense as verse. That isn't to say it isn't in verse. I've just not attempted to make it verse. So there may be verse in there that could be tried. I have done very little with this text. I mean, I think that's the important thing to state, is that all I've done is, broadly speaking, try to tidy up some of the spelling and make it vaguely formattable on the page. But a lot of editorial work could be done with this. Oddly enough, not many people have done any editorial work on Fragments because why? But we do because we care. Okay, well, we've got a pitch for that. I'm very happy to move on. We're just going to do it as writ and chop his head off. Okay. Didn't think that's where we were going. Next up, the play of Oswald. I don't think that's the actual title of the play. That's the thing about with a lot of these titles. They're not really necessarily titles. They're more placeholders, a lot of them. But this features someone called Oswald. It also effectively has two scenes, the first of which is quite a mess. We sort of got an idea some different people are speaking, but we don't really know who they are, and some of their dialogue doesn't really work. So we're just going to go, I think, around the room in order. So I'll go me, then Liza, then Eric, then Rachael. Me, Liza, Eric, Rachael. I don't think we'll necessarily get through all of us, but where it looks like it's a separate paragraph or a separate speech, then we'll go round. So I'll start Liza, Eric, Rachael. Know not at my return what door to knock at, nor where my parents dwell, nor whom to ask for.
Good heart.
Pray tell the Duchess this, and that I pant out my last farewell to her.
This I shall do, and with, well, I'll exercise, find out the miss of her change.
Will you? You are my good angel, and with all of not be the shadow of anything that ever she. Pray let her have this cloak and plummets hanging at my will as they are let down. Keep to tell me how the day goes. Give me, thou part's not hence yet. Wind up all thy, else shall fill thine ears a chime of. So yeah, I love the opening line. But yeah, there are some people, probably two people speaking there. I think that's a dialogue rather than splitting it out to effectively 5 voices. That felt like something going on. You're my angel. Shadow of anything that she. Have this cloak. There's a cloak. Thoughts, Rachael? What's going on? I don't know. Probably Oswald's going to turn up later.
Am I lagging?
Just
am I lagging?
Tad. Just a tad.
Okay. I was going to say, part of it seems, the first part seems rhymed verse. The bottom, it seems blank verse.
Or we're just missing bits of it so that we're missing the rhymes. Yeah, Liza.
I wonder if the cloak in the last fragment is not really a clock, because it really seems like the rest of that speech is a metaphor for clockwork.
Ooh.
Plummets being the weights that hung on a chain to keep a tall clock going, and then the last lines, probably spoken by another speaker, are, wind up all thy something, or else shall fill thine ears a chime of something. So maybe she's being given the person is being given a grandfather clock or something.
I'm liking the clock thing. I think you're right. That feels good to me. Eric. Basing on no data at all. I love this. Eric.
I was just gonna say the way you performed it with the rustling of the paper was very lab arty, and it was like sort of, look, we have this thing. It feels very alive.
Okay. We have a scene that's a lot more together, but unfortunately we don't quite have enough people to read it. So we are going to all have to be really on our game now to make this vaguely clear. So who is everyone? I'm Thum, Genissa, Bracy, Clerimond, and Mousetrap. Eric, Oswald, Toogood, Malfrida, Liza, Ethelbert, and Gerard. You only get 2? Damn. Rachael gets to be Duchess, Ingram, and Coell. Cool. Yes, I'm also and I'm going to ask Eric to be the first non-existent bit of dialogue as well. So all I swear, if I'll ask Eric to read that as well. Let's see how far we get before this all falls apart. So enter. Sorry, this is stage direction. Flourish, perhaps. All you've got there is Oris. Enter. We can infer Gerard, Ethelbert, Orina, Sibert, Ardelia, Clerimond, Adrian, Bertrand, Bracy, and Ranulph Lebeau.
The sun, to hear this story, has gone slowly, as wondering and delighting in the change of this your Oswald's fortune.
Well, I swear by my best hopes being true that I related.
In her discoursing on your cheek, I noted the battle of a paleness and a red fighting together often.
'Twas nothing but a self-feeling and compassionate sharing of Oswald's joy or sorrows.
Enter the Duchess and Oswald, hand in hand.
Before my voice advance itself to height, my lord, dear husband.
What's the matter?
Look on these jewels, look upon 'em well. Round turn 'em round. Duke Gerard, noble madame, Sibert, princely Sibert, girl, upon my blessing, shoot at his face fixed looks, cast all your eyes on this young man, and wonder at him.
What owl am I now made?
Know you these toys?
I do, and if the god of silence please to lay his finger on each lip but mine, I with strange music will fill every ear, whilst I am rapt to tell you what you shall hear.
Pray, sir, go on, and silence.
Oh, you fates, how subtle are your windings! When my father, taking his last leave of me, left a dukedom, I was both young and sickly, sick in body that it shivered even my mind, and with that too, I had then an uncle in plots for cunning, and too strong for me or any to wrestle with. The opinion of his valor, wisdom, worth, awed all my dukedom. 'Twas he ruled, not I.
He had our glory, we misery.
My wife had a first son, but my lewd uncle, should I die heirless, thinking mine his own, poisoned that child. A second blessed her womb, that too was marked for death ere it knew life. He, meeting with the world, was in one night secretly in the swathing clothes conveyed into Northumberland, out of Mercia. To mock the tyrant she gave out it died. The nurse that kept it likewise lived not long, but how nurse juggled, how my boy was lost. I'm sure this cock and crucifix I tied to a small chain of gold about his neck with my own fingers.
Mother, madam, Duchess, how came you by these tokens?
Have I not told thee? This Oswald, howsoever at first you named him, is that lost son, got, as you heard, my lord, for money from his nurse just when she died.
Oh, my dear Eldred, for that name I gave thee.
I care not how you name me, so I have a mother, but a piece of a mother.
If he be mine, there's on his neck the print of a ripe mulberry.
Mulberry ripe. Look, madam, look, I'm your own boy. I warned you, else chop my neck off.
Yes, it's here. Oh, let me kiss this jewel.
Kiss for kiss then, mother. New mother now. Let me kiss you for Hansel's sake.
He has, besides, the talon of an eagle on this arm.
A whole eyrie of eagles. So, sire, 'tis here. The Ethoi Aquila, both he and she.
Never on me till now shone beams so clear.
Nor on me neither. Farewell, father. Adieu, mother. Blessing, father. Blessing, mother. Brother, I'm glad you cozened me of a wife. Sister, I'm glad you called me not husband. I knew there was noble blood in me, for I'm in debt, and full of other such noble qualities, can drink hard, spend bravely, and love a sweet girl.
I'm just going to pause there before we go any further. So, welcome to the Importance of Being Earnest. It's it's just, I was expecting someone to say a handbag at any moment. It's just, yeah, Ethelbert. It's a history play apparently. So Ethelbert's turned up. We've got who? Yeah, that's. I'm assuming unless Ethelbert was actually a really common name somewhere. But yeah, that's doing some business. I'm enjoying it, even though sort of it's this strange thing of going, what the hell's going on? Huh? What? It feels like we're very late into the play, but I could be wrong there. Rachael, then Eric.
I think it depends if we choose that. If it's the truth, then I think we're late in the play. If it winds up that this is some, ruse that they're pulling to, because he's just said he's got many debts. If this is like early modern disguise and they know some of these things and they've fallen for it and it's a comedy, so the real Oswald or the, whoever guy is the real Duchess's son shows up later on, that this could be the beginning of, all the wonderful comedy hijinks. And then also, who's Ethelbert?
One of various potential kings. Liza.
Yeah, I think we are in early medieval England, right? Because they're talking about Mercia and Northumbria, and those were both before Alfred the Great united the Kingdom of England. Those were both kingdoms of this period.
Yeah, so I think there's more than one Ethelbert off the top of my head, and it's all a bit wibbly wobbly when you're before the Norman conquests, and it's almost certainly all nonsense anyway. It's just a setting for the play.
Well, the names are the names. Some of the names anyway reference Old English.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, I was going to say that I like that the sort of traits of a noble person are being in debt and having other qualities, like, getting really, really drunk, spending a lot, and having loving a sweet girl.
Yeah, it's a really quite funny. It's really quite funny. I'm really enjoying this. I'm sad it's going to be all over soon. And it's also going to get very confusing for anyone trying to follow us along, because we're all now going to be playing about 3 different people simultaneously. So eyes down for the close of all we've got. Enter Sir Ingram, Toogood, Count Coell, Genissa, Malfrida, Mousetrap, and Thum.
I come, my lords, for justice.
I come for no justice but a wench, and should be sorry to find any justice in her.
Lay by distracted looks and moody language. Speak one at once and mildly.
Mildly, she is my daughter.
And this daughter and I are all one.
I have promised her to this night mongrel.
And I have promised her a ladyship.
Give way to one another. Say what hinders the marriage between these two.
This, and please your grace, she will not have my master.
This beggarly Mercian Count Coell says she's his wife.
How say you, lady?
Yes, my lord, I am.
Art thou? What mortal tailor's yard can measure the mockadoo heart of a woman? Give me a wench that's pure perpetuani for thy sake. All thy gum taffety sex shall be to me no more than that base stuff called stand farther off.
That beggarly poor Mercian, meaning him, that beggarly poor Mercian is my kinsman. Your banishment from Mercia, noble Coell, count and mine honoured cousin, the king our master calls in, and you shall home to the court with me, and hold your place and offices.
How's this? Count and cousin count. I am cozened too.
Nor need you scorn to call him son-in-law.
How shall I know that?
Search him.
And I, sir, was at his wedding, and I.
Yes, and I, and many other both Mercians and Northumbrians.
How came Troy burned? By a woman. How are men drunk? To the healths of women. How men killed tea about brittle glassy woman? I would draw if I durst.
And I too, if it would come out.
Restrain their furies.
Furies all run mad.
How mad?
Yes, mad. 'Tis the only custard my teeth water at. For when I'm mad, I'll rail upon women, roar at men, I will stamp in verse and stamp in prose. I will jeer at the players, mew at the poets, swagger at the doors, swear they are false gatherers, and kick the women.
You'll be more wise, Sir Ingram.
No, I scorn at it, and scorn thee. Farewell.
Why farewell?
I will haunt thee longer yet. A butterbox loves not bacon and pickle herring as I hate these Westphalian gammons of thy cheeks. Farewell forever.
Exit Ingram.
And farewell forever.
Forever and an acre of time longer. And exit someone else.
So, 'tis well. We are quiet. What's this, officer?
My lord, a friend of mine.
Yes, his back friend, my lord.
Oh, Malfrida.
Oh, is this he, Mal, you had my lord's warrant for?
The very same, madam, because I would have such a long-tailed rat to know what and whose cheese he is to know. All the whole gang of gudgeon eaters, the anthropophagi sergeants, had not the wit to arrest Count Coell, but this, fas et nefas. He goes by the name of Mousetrap, and a curious, snapping, dispatching mousetrap he is.
Oh, what did I? I did fairly, though not honestly. I did not cobble it up, nor dangle my work as if it had been a botcher in my trade.
No, in troth, thou didst it well, and I love thee for it.
I handled you softly, tenderly, and gingerly, because you were my patient. My first dressing went, I know, a little to the heart, but I had my glass of balm, which I poured into your wound. Your blow on the shoulder is nothing. A cup of canary in a tavern heals it. Besides, I called not to you, nor pulled out your throat for my hours of mercy, as I do to others. My staying with you, I mean.
No, indeed, thou didst not.
Nay, my lord, I'll speak thus much in his praise to his face. Though he be as fell as mastiff as ever ran upon a gentleman, yet the cur is of a good breed, and to one he knows will shake his tail.
And there the text ends, and we're sort of going, lots of things are going on, none of which I fully understand. But they've all got some really. I like Sir Ingram just losing his. Just going off, going postal on them all. It's not good stuff that he's suggesting he wants to do, but he does do it with aplomb. So yeah. Not a great person, but entertaining to watch him lose it. Rachael.
Yeah, how you said the other one seemed like the end of the play, especially with this scene this scene also. It seems like the A plot and the B plot B plot are being resolved in this section, in these sections. I wish we had more of it because it seems interesting, it would be fun and interesting to play with the language more. This guy crafts funny insults, and I think he does some of these some deadpan humor too, with some of these people going off, and then the more, I guess, serious characters in this comedy just being like, no, indeed you didn't.
Yeah. It's not just the A plot and the B plot. It's actually a C plot as well, because we've got this lawsuit thing coming up on hot on the heels. And yeah, it does feel like all the plots are just turning up at the end and going, yeah, we've got a play to resolve. Let's resolve it now. And yeah, it's got some life to it. It's got some life. Eric, sorry.
I find it interesting that there's a character called Mousetrap because he's good at catching criminals, it seems, or something. It's not. I just like the metaphor of and know what and whose cheese he is to know. Yeah, I have no idea what that speech was about, aside from like, look, we found the criminal. It's fine. We've arrested him. Everything is fine.
Yeah. Yes, Mousetrap being the officer of some description or bailiff of some sort. Yeah. Because he manages to snaffle up the cheese, or the plaintiff, as it were. Okay. Any additional thoughts, Eric?
I just have a question. At the end, where Toogood or Sir Bar, who I'm assuming is the actor playing him or something, or person reading him, says he be as fell as the mastiff as ever ran upon a gentleman, yet the curs of a good breed. Is that meant to be like shade, or is it just my impression?
It's possibly. Again, the absence of more context, it's hard to tell. I'll speak thus much in praise to his face. So yeah, it does suggest that there might be a double meaning being at play here. Okay, well, we have Oswald's come good. Want more of that? Get in your time machine. Get that time machine built, people. We want the rest of Oswald. We'd like to know what it's actually called, because it might not actually be called. The Importance of Being Oswald. That's what I'm calling it. That's where I'm going for now. Okay, we have two short little ets to do, one of which we'll come back to at a future date in more detail. But we've got first off a little speechette from. It's labelled again. These are all these sort of vague generic labels that people have given it. That it's some sort of history play, and that it's by John Day. That's what we know from early 1600s. And Eric, why don't you give us some history?
Brother, there were two neighbors of our state, yet both infected with a strong disease and mortal sickness, proud ambition, which being rank and villainously near, had they not been prevented, might have proved fatal and dangerous. Then, since scornful death hath, like a skilful artist, cured that fear which might have proved so hurtful to ourselves, let us commit in sad and mournful sound their worths to fame, their bodies to the ground. For the dead Percy bore a gallant maid. England has my prayers for the dead Percy bore a gallant mind. That makes more sense. England has my prayers left behind.
And that's it. So we've got a dead Percy, which maybe gives us a precise. That's probably why they're thinking it's a history play, unless it's just some random Percy. Otherwise, yeah. We've encountered John Day a little bit before. We've on Parliament of Bees. We've got quite a few John Day plays lined up, and he may have had a hand in some other things that we've read, depending on your point of view. So yeah, has a nice sort of bombasticness to it. Any thoughts in the room? Anything, Eric?
It's the shortest history play I've ever read.
We can assume the rest of it was much longer.
Well, it's definitely like setting up something. It sounds a bit like a prologue. There were two neighbors of our state who were both infected, blah blah blah. Or it's either the prologue or like sort of someone's
Well, it's a bit of an epitaph, isn't it?
yeah, epitaph, but like not at the end of the play. I don't know. Because it says let us commit in sad and mournful sound their worth to fame. So that suggests to me that like maybe there's something that follows it. I don't know. Maybe.
Liza.
No, I'm sorry. Whatever I was going to say has flown right out of my head. Sorry.
That's all right. Well, we've got one more text step to do. I think we can find a place where someone needs an epitaph. We might be able to throw that in somewhere. Just change the name, or just make it the shortest history play ever written. Just make it incredibly short. There's a battle, somebody dies, he does the epitaph. That's it. Show over. That'll be 5 of your English pounds for entry, and there are no refunds. No, we should. It's a history play. We should charge more. Anyway, so this is some fragments. They come from a court case, and we've actually got the court case in detail. And at some point further down the line, we're actually going to look into the wider court case that this comes into, because it's quite interesting. This is evidence. And they quote bits of the play as evidence. So I'm going to sort of go round the room and get people to read. So we'll sort of just go around the room again in order. So we'll go Liza, Eric, Rachael, me. Liza, Eric, Rachael, me, and we'll see how far we get. So you can read the sort of the bits that go before your line of dialogue as well, because it gives a bit of a context as to what's being said in the play. But it's we just have these little fragments of dialogue, almost no context. So Liza,
the fool's will, my wooden dagger that same lord shall have that called my Lord of Kyme a piebald knave.
Song's Latin refrain, ora pro nobis.
The mock prayer, De profundis pro defunctis, let us pray for our good Lord that died this present day. Now blessed be his body and his bones. I hope his legs are hotter than gravestones. And to that hope let's all conclude it then. Both men and women pray and say Amen.
Mock prayer of Dimmock. The mercy of mustard seed and the blessing of the bull beef and the peace of potluck be with you all. Amen.
Minister's text. Caesar dendo sublevando, ignoscendo gloriam adaptus est, Bayard's leap on Ancaster heath, the bounder stone on Bolingbroke's fen, I say the more knaves, the honester men.
And so those were the fragments from the death of the Lord of Kyme, as noted in a court case, which I say some further down the line we're going to go into this in more detail. But we got some mock verse going on here. I think the court case was basically along the lines of, was that added in deliberately to insult and blaspheme and insult people who were in the room, or was it part of the artistic expression of the logic of the play? I think that's the court case, but as I say, I'm not sure off the top of my head. But I quite like the mock prayers. I feel like they're saying you could drop into a play. That feels like clown business. The mercy of mustard seed, the blessing of the bull beef, and the peace of potluck be with you all. Amen. I think if anyone ever asks me to say grace, I hope his legs are hotter than gravestones. Yes, there's some good lines there. You can understand why people might got annoyed. Eric.
Yeah, De Profundis Pro Defunctus. Rachel was reading it and I was reading along in my head, but I misread that as De Profundis Pro Fecundis, and I was like, okay, no, that's even worse. How did they? Is this the whole thing of them getting away with things? Because I really want to know what was in this play now.
Well, these are the contentious lines. So if we were saying earlier we've got the surviving lines because they were zingers. These are the lines that led to a court case, and that's why they survived. The rest of the lines are probably quite boring. Rachael.
So, did this manuscript of this get burned for these things? Is it something like, like, yeah?
I don't think so. I think the manuscript is just lost by the mists of time. This survives because it survives in a court case. I don't think it was a major play. I think it was a local thing, presumably in Lancaster. I should know this off the top of my head. I can't reach the book that will tell me the answers. Just that's slightly too far away. I'd have to get out of my chair. Just there, I can see it. But yeah. So I say that, but that's saying I really want it because we've got we do have all the pretty much all the documents are available. And once I've actually tidied them up and got them ready, we'll actually do probably a whole session on these lines of a play, but more importantly, the context around it, because it's some fun stuff. So I'd say final thoughts, but it's sort of weird in this context to do final thoughts for all of these random bits, but which are all part of that tapestry of plays. The one thing about doing all the plays is you do all the plays. I've really enjoyed Oswald. I really liked Oswald. Holefer, yeah, it wasn't great, but that was okay stuff. Quite like George Puttenham was okay. I'm a big fan of Albion Knight, just simply because I think it's got real potential. I don't know what to do with Oswald. I don't know how you could infer an entire play out of that. I think it's quite a difficult one to do. At least with Albion, you can just sort of end. You've got the entire plot has basically been laid out for you, so you could improvise or write your own play. But I don't quite know where to go with that. Thoughts on Oswald? In the comments if you'd like to see more Oswald. Anyone watching along will probably struggle slightly to understand because we're doing all the voices. But hey, that's all part of the fun. Any final thoughts anyone wants to throw in before we close the session? Eric.
I can't help but wonder if you can reverse reconstruct the plot of Oswald, just because based on the information you've got there, even if it's not detailed as they would have been. You've got someone who's recognizing a family, someone who's being arrested for something. You've got quite a few things in terms of characterization.
Yeah, I mean Oswald does a whole Luke Skywalker thing because he's a bit into his someone who turns out to be his sister. It's there's a whole plot line development there that is just go at the end could be quite fun. One for the improvisation shop when we get around to doing it, and see where we go. All that remains then is to thank all these wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. And the peace of potluck be with you all. Amen.